Hello.
Hey.
Hello, how are you, Alison?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi there.
Good to see you.
Hi, Roy.
Hi.
Hello, Alison.
How are you all?
Well, thank you.
Good. Hey, Miriam. Hey, Johnny.
Hi.
Jūrate, laba diena. Hello.
Laba diena. Hello, hello. So how do you feel after vaccination?
Very well. Very well. Till now, very well.
Nice to hear.
Which vaccine did you take, Rolanda?
AstraZeneca, I couldn't choose, you know. They
Couldn't
just
choose.
said.
Ah.
And I was surprised that I was able to get it in England, you know. But the second one, I will have to find out somehow to get in Lithuania.
Second dose. Okay.
Yeah,
You might feel the effects tomorrow.
really.
Be
Okay.
prepared. You might just feel a bit like you've got the flu for 24 hours.
Yeah, they said to me that it's possible. We will see. Okay.
I did after my first
I,
one.
I also took AstraZeneca, I think 1 month ago or more. And I didn't feel, I mean, I felt a little bit sick the second day, some temperature, but it was fine at the end. I didn't take any medication. It was good.
Yeah.
Up to now. Okay, I don't know if we can start, Wadia, if you can hear me. Do you think everyone is here? Can we start? Because I don't know how many people confirmed, so
Hello.
the people
Hello.
who are, hello. Hello, Wadia.
Hello, Vadi.
Hi, Wadia.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Thank you very much. So I think you can start. I will accept other participants. So you can start. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay, good. I think we have 9 people or 10 here now. We are 9, in addition to the host. So, okay, so let's start. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for coming to this session, to thank Wadia and the organizers for these series of workshops. And it's my pleasure to be with you today to help initiate a nice discussion about the topic of intercultural citizenship education. As you saw in Wadia's email, the program of the 2 sessions that we are going to have for the next 2 weeks is as follows. Let me just share my screen with you, please. Okay, so can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this document was shared by Wadia last week, I think, and so of course this falls within the project Act for Dialogue, Be a Plural Citizen, and this comes as a follow-up to the previous workshops that were organized. And for today's session, we are going to, first of all, to review the concepts together. Of course, I am sure you know these concepts, so just for the sake of getting us into the activities of the workshop, we will have to review these concepts together. And we will share together our experiences or our best practices in intercultural citizenship education with a focus on pedagogical activities, what we can do with young people, with students, with the people we work with or we train in intercultural citizenship education. After the break, this will take about 60 minutes. So after the break, we are going to do another activity where we can have a debate on some key issues around the topic of intercultural citizenship education. And of course, the objective is to share our collective knowledge and our collective experiences so that at the end we can come up with an understanding, or at least we will have shared some of our insights into intercultural citizenship education in practice. For the second session, which is going to be next week, I am going to invite you, let's see how this goes, to invite you to think about some issues, debatable issues, and I would like, if possible, that you prepare 5-minute presentations for us next week, because the objective is not only, of course, to provide knowledge or ideas, but it's also to learn together. So it's good if we have people next week, inshallah, to give us or to share their experiences or their ideas, their thoughts. There are going to be short presentations of 5 minutes around the topics, and these topics are modifiable. They are flexible. We can change them. If you think we can change these topics, we can at the end of today's session. So we are going to agree on that with some recommendations for optimal intercultural citizenship education in our societies and in the work we do as an Anna Lindh Foundation, and also as individual organizations and as individuals in our communities. So we will also debate some issues around the current situation of the pandemic and how this affects the work of intercultural citizenship education activists and the work that we do. So this is in general what we are going to do. You had a look at the document, of course, so this is just to remind ourselves. So let's get started immediately. And let me, if you don't mind, let me introduce myself. My name is Lehsen Tigoula. I am a teacher trainer in Morocco and the supervisor of English language teaching in secondary schools in Morocco in the area of Agadir. In addition to my work with the Ministry of Education, I also work with civil society organizations, mainly with the Moroccan Association of Teachers of English and with other organizations that work in youth work and in language and culture. My involvement with the Anna Lindh Foundation started back in 2007 when I attended a workshop in Cyprus on project development, and my involvement in intercultural citizenship education began in Helsinki's workshop, where the Anna Lindh handbook was tried out when we gave some feedback. And recently, I also attended the training for trainers in Nicosia, together with Rolanda. I am happy that she's here. So we attended that training where we got more, of course, information about the handbook and how it can be used in formal and non-formal education to promote intercultural citizenship. So it's really my pleasure to be with you, and I feel privileged to have such a group of very knowledgeable people, because I was with you in the first workshop, and I unfortunately couldn't attend the second one, but I watched the recording just to have an idea. So it's really my pleasure, and I'm sure we are going to learn together during these 2 sessions. So let's get started. The objective of this session, of today's session, are to review the concepts, as I said in the beginning. But of course, it's not an insult to your knowledge, so for your intelligence. I am sure you know these concepts already, so it's just for the methodological purposes we have to review them. Then the most important thing is we are going to share some pedagogical activities to promote intercultural education. I have selected 2 activities, but my hope is that you are also going to share the activities that you think are relevant to the topic. And third, we are going to discuss a set of issues related to intercultural citizenship education as a debate, because of course it's a topic that is so multifaceted and so complex. So our hope is to be able to discuss as much as possible in this workshop. Of course, the discussion will not finish there. So I would like with you to start with this puzzle. I think some of you know it already. Do you know this one? How to link the 9 dots using only 4 continuous lines? Do you know this puzzle?
No.
I do.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good. So let me just give the others 1 minute or so to think about how to solve it. How do you think can be solved? Using these dots and using only 4 continuous lines to link the dots. So who said I know? I'm sorry, I couldn't see the. Can you help us? Somebody said that they know.
I know, Rolanda knows.
Okay, Rolanda, how can you do it? What is the key?
The key is to go from that frame, because at the moment we see those like four corners, yeah, and very
Yes.
clear figure, and usually we are thinking how to do inside. But if we go outside,
Yeah.
just look. If you go, yeah, just trying to go outside, and you will see what is happening.
Exactly. Exactly. If you don't go outside, you will need more than 4 lines to link them. So the key, as you said, Rolanda, is to get out of the box.
Mhm.
And you have these 2 possibilities that you can use the 4 lines to link all the 9 dots, but you will have to get outside the box. And I think this is the objective of the intercultural citizenship education. It's, we need to use our critical thinking and to get out of the box. The box can be our the traditional conception of cultures. It can be our political institutions. It can be the traditions. It can be some of the religious ideas. The box can be our perceptions, prejudices, and so on. So we need to use critical thinking and to be able to change how we see things in order to promote intercultural citizenship education. So I would like with you to review these 4 concepts. Of course, you know them, but when we think about thinking outside the box, of course, the concept of citizenship, we are called to move from the view of citizenship as belonging to a geographical entity, and this is traditionally what some people think about. When they think about citizenship, they also think of nationality, belonging to a nation or to a geographical entity. But in intercultural citizenship education, we need to go beyond that to the notion of responsible citizenship, which is fluid, dynamic, and changing over time. It is also an adoption of common values that transcend all boundaries. So we need to be empathetic, to be able to change, to be able to share people's ideas, to understand other people. So of course, this is the right view of understanding citizenship within the framework of intercultural citizenship education. The aim of practicing this citizenship is learning to live together positively with differences. Of course, when we think of culture, again, culture involved, so many things are involved when we talk about culture. What is bad and good, how families are structured, the nature of the relationships, gender relationships and women, the perception of time, traditions, languages spoken, rules that govern food and drink, how information is shared, how power is shared again, the reactions to other cultures, etc. But the main thing is that culture, when we talk about intercultural citizenship education, we need, of course, to remember that culture is dynamic rather than static. So when we consider, for example, how good and bad are defined in a community, we also need that these things change, to know that these things change, and that family structures change, that everything in this list is subject to change and subject to modification. And I think this relative view of culture is very important again in intercultural citizenship education. There is also diversity, and I think in the last session we discussed the idea of the analogy of the salad bowl or the melting pot. And when we think from the perspective of interculturality, of course, the salad bowl seems more appropriate because the components of a salad bowl, they may keep their individual identities. They may be proud of who they are, but at the same time, they are belonging to one community. Of course, we also discussed this before, moving from multicultural to intercultural societies. And I remember Alison was explaining the difference between multiculturalism and the interculturalism in the previous session. And of course, in multicultural societies, difference is often viewed negatively, especially when there is a predominant culture, and forms a major justification for discrimination. This is what we see happening in many nations that pretend to be multicultural, but there is a lot of dominance and there is lots of discrimination against subgroups of the community. But on the other hand, in intercultural societies, different cultures living together within a territory, they maintain open relations of interaction, exchange, mutual recognition of their own and the respective values and ways of life. So when we come to the main concept that brings all of these things together, which is intercultural citizenship education, we may define it as a kind of education, be it formal or non-formal, that promotes acceptance of difference, empathy, mutual understanding, and considers culture as dynamic and changing over time. Sorry for the typos there. So this is really important. This is my own definition based on what I read about in the handbook and also in other documents. Because people and communities depend on each other to coexist, intercultural citizenship education is an education for democratic citizenship. And this is very important. Respect for identities and collective belief in common values. And of course, we can also talk about responsible citizenship. Responsible citizenship is citizenship which is not related only to our rights as individuals and groups, but also to considering other people's rights and thinking about other people's rights to coexist in the community as well. Now, this is, as I said in the beginning, of course, we all know about these concepts, but what is important is to implement them, is to, in the work that we do, either in formal institutions or in non-formal institutions, how can we implement these values and these ideas of intercultural citizenship education in the work that we do? I would like to invite you all to do an exercise which I took from the, adapted from the Anna Lindh Foundation Education Handbook. I don't know if the breakout sessions, because I tried with Wadia before this session, and for some reason we couldn't do the breakout sessions, but let me ask Wadia if the problem is solved or no?
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet, okay. So we cannot go into breakout sessions, but we are a small group. We can't do it together as one group if we cannot do the breakout. So the activity that I would like to invite you is the following. Each group, in this case, because we are not going to go into breakout sessions into 2 groups or 3, hopefully this problem will be solved. But if we can't, we can work as a group individually first, and then we can report it as a main group. So we're going to do it individually. Each group or member, each individual must think fast to continue the story as quick as possible. And the activity is entitled The Story Of. The Story Of, it's taken from the handbook. The reporter takes notes to report in the main room. He or she does not participate in building the story. Now, because now we are one group, we are going to modify this. So each one of us is going to take one of these stories that I'm going to show in the next slide. There is only a prompt. It is the beginning of the story, only one phrase. So if you have that phrase, you will have to continue the story, but without too much thinking. Just do it, as it comes to your mind. Don't think too much. Do it as if you are trying to build a story. And that when 5 minutes are over, we are going to report, like each one of us is going to read the story. And I will share with you, tell you what we can do with the story later on, when we finished writing it first. So these are the prompts. Let me just see how many people we are before we go into the prompts. Okay. I need to go to see the... Wadia, can you help? We are 9 people, right? I suppose, okay, I think we are 9, okay. 9, okay. So if you are 9 people, these are the prompts. We have 4 prompts, which means each 2 of us we are going to choose one prompt. The first one, Aisha, a sub-Saharan woman trying to immigrate via North Africa, immigrate to Europe. So if you choose this prompt, you are going to finish the story, and you'll have 5 minutes, but whenever you stop, that's fine. The second one, Shawqi, a job seeker with physical disability. Imagine a story for this prompt. The third one, Rita, a single mother living in a poor neighborhood. Fourth one, Brian, a Liverpool football team fan. You can imagine the rest of the story. So I suggest that you choose, either you choose the prompt or we can decide on who is going to work on which prompt. What do you think?
I'm happy to choose my own.
Okay, great. So you can choose anyone you like, and exactly in 5 minutes, we'll be sharing our stories, okay? Let's start counting now. Is that clear? I just wanted to make sure if the activity is clear.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Are we just making up the rest of the story?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, still have 1 minute. Okay, I think its time is over. So let's start sharing. I would like a volunteer to start sharing their story.
I don't mind going first.
Okay, I think this is Jurati, right?
Miriam.
No, I'm sorry. Okay. I have a problem identifying who is talking. I'm sorry.
No
Miriam,
problem.
go ahead,
Yeah.
please. Which prompt did you choose?
So I went for number 3, and I guess because it was the easiest one for me in terms of, you know, I have a few friends in a similar situation, or, you know, it seems to be quite
Okay.
common.
Okay, just 1 minute, please, Miriam. Our task is for the people who are listening, and we should not change the story right now, just for everyone. We have to keep the story as it is. Our task is to listen to the speaker who is reading her story, and to see if we can identify any prejudice or stereotype in the story. Of course, this does not mean that the person who has written the story is prejudiced. No, it doesn't mean that, but that sometimes when we hear a story or we tell a story, there might be prejudices that are involved in how that person evolves in society. So the task is there any prejudice or any stereotype that we can spot in the story that we are going to hear? Okay, so go ahead, Miriam.
Okay. I didn't write it as a story. I've just put the points of the story because we didn't have a lot of time, but hopefully this is fine. So Rita is a single mother living in a poor neighborhood. She's struggling to find childcare, and so she cannot work. She relies on social housing and child benefit in order to survive. She was forced to resign at the end of her maternity leave from work, so she doesn't have a job anymore. Her baby's father does not provide for their child financially, and this makes things harder. She begins to sell products online in order to make a living. And then she also considers going to university so that she can build a better future for herself and her child. And she needs a better support network in order to do this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Miriam. It's a nice story, by the way. I mean, it's built in a nice way. So are there any issues or stereotypes or prejudices or things that are problematic issues that are raised in this story? So everyone can intervene, no problem. Anyone can.
I think I've chosen the same story actually, Miriam. But I want to make the point is that single parents, and particularly single women, are often criticised and demonised by society as being a problem, and that their children are all problems that everybody else has to support, and that they're generally the root of high crime rates in poor areas, and it's all down to single parents and particularly single mums, that they're all scroungers. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but they're basically taking benefits and not working because they're lazy or they're feckless or all of those things.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Alison. And I'd also add, just from some of the conversations I've had with friends, it's always the women that take the kind of negative side of it. So we don't ask the men or the fathers, why did you leave your family? It's more to the woman, what did you do that the father left? So I think that's something that should be addressed as well, that women tend to take the blame.
I think if we see a single father with a child, he's applauded for doing a great job, you know, because it's not the usual trajectory for single parenthood. I'm not saying that there aren't single fathers, there are, and they do just as good a job, but they're generally treated more highly, whereas a single woman isn't.
Yes, and it's been like that always, hasn't it? And I mean, we can go back years, and it's this kind of attitude towards single mothers, and the prejudice that it's almost a cultural thing, and it's not. It relates to young women that I knew when I was younger who were in this position, and they were certainly, as you say, they were frowned upon. They weren't given the same opportunities, particularly if they were looking for work. Particularly, I had a friend who was desperate she was qualified as a teacher, but she was a single mum. And okay, we're going back to the 60s and 70s, but nevertheless, those attitudes still prevail.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Miriam also, I mean, some of the things that came in the story is that her baby's father did not provide financial assistance. And I think this comes back to what Alison said about this irony, or this, I would say, hypocrisy, social hypocrisy, when we see a single dad. It's not the same perception, the same view as a single mother. And I think one of the issues is this stereotype that it is the single mom's duty to do everything for the kids. And there is also the issue of education, that she decided to go to university to study. And I think this brings the issue of the rights of single mothers to achieve their goals. And it also puts into question the role of educational institutions to take into consideration the special needs of people who are struggling with their lives. And most of the times, at least in my community, most of the single moms stop studying. They don't study at all. They don't develop their professional competencies, because everything falls on them. All the responsibility falls on them. And of course, as Alison said, the social view, society views single moms, especially in our communities, in a negative way. It's really bad. And especially when we work with young people, with students, for example, when they write a story like this, it's like a good way to bring these topics through the story. So in the story, from the story, we can discuss these points. So can we move to another story, or maybe the same one? I think Alison said that she wrote the same prompt, right?
Yeah, I'll just add a few of the thoughts that kind of, in addition to what Miriam has said, there's always going to be this financial struggle. And obviously the choice is you either have to work, and therefore you've got to put your child in childcare. So there's that guilt as well of, are you a parent, or are you well, you've got to be everything when you're the single parent. And that results in the child spending an inordinate amount of time in some kind of care. So whether that's school or after school or with family and friends, so that the parent can bring in income, so that, the first thought is always a roof over the head, food on the table, pay all the bills. And that can have a massive impact on young people, because they're not building strong bonds with their parents. They don't have time. There's, both exhausted. Generally in poor areas, the schools are less adequate, and the education suffers, not as a result of having a single parent, but just because it's a poor area and the schools aren't very good. And also they won't cater to the additional needs that, say a child is on the spectrum, or has a disability, or is neurodiverse, then they're not going to have the same educational experience, and therefore will come out of education less able to achieve their own goals. And again, it's that, how do we foster a sense of goodness and rightness for a young person who's coming from a single parent background, to enable them to have the same opportunities as young people from two-parent homes or parent homes that from higher class systems where they've got more financial input. And I think it's always the within communities, certainly here in the UK, single parents are more normal now than they were in the past, but they still carry a lot of stigma, and the power structures of government and local government still are heavily critical of people who are single with a child. That's it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It seems that I had a connection problem. I'm sorry about that. Okay. So I said I apologize because I had a connection problem. So I guess Alison has finished talking about the story.
Yes, I'm going to type. I'll do what Miriam has done.
I missed half of what you said at the end because of the connection. So, all right. So you were talking about the financial burden that falls on single moms and how that.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say I would add the extra points anyway, as Miriam has done in the chat. But just to say, if you're in a poor area, the schools are likely also poor. They're underfunded. You're less likely as a child to get the outcomes that you would want to achieve in those schools. And if you add into the mix, if the child has got any disabilities, learning difficulties, is spectrum, is neurodiverse, then they're also more likely to underachieve in a poor school because they won't have the support necessary that they need.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alison. We need to go to the next stories, if you don't mind. Did anybody write about?
Yes, I can share my story. I chose second option about Choki, if I pronounce it correctly. A job seeker with physical disability.
Okay.
So I guess this is a woman. I don't know from the name, but I imagine it's a woman. So
Shoki is a male. No, it's a male name. But
sorry. That doesn't change.
No problem.
Story.
Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, just go ahead, please.
Okay, so when seeking for a job, he makes a plan to complete accounting courses, first of all, because accountant's job allows him to work mainly from home. And he studies hard because he's ambitious. And after getting diploma, he applies for an accountant's position and gets a job. So this is my very positive story. I would think so, because we now really have many opportunities to work online. This is the proof of us ourselves now. So that was the idea. If you want, you can achieve.
Thank you very much, Jurati. Is that the right pronunciation of the name?
Jurate.
Jurate. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any reactions? Did you notice any issue or stereotype about people with disabilities in this story? I have a question and a comment about this story, Yorati. Let me just accept Ajida. She's waiting in the waiting room. Okay, I think she has joined us now. Welcome. I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Aida.
Maida. Okay, you're welcome.
Aida.
So I was saying that when Yorata was reading the story, I took note of that he chose accounting because he wanted to work from home. And for me, this brings the idea of for people with disabilities, don't they have the right also to enjoy jobs that other people enjoy also? And isn't it possible to give them equal access to jobs and to help them, do them and to take into consideration their disability, but to integrate them in the other jobs instead of limiting that person in a job that they can do at home? What do you think?
Yes, this is the profession that I chose on a purpose,
Okay.
and I use the word mainly from home.
Okay.
Because we know that accountants have to go to the bank physically, yes, so have to visit maybe some companies or whatever, but that's of course would be really different, and I wouldn't imagine with all the respect for disabled people, but I wouldn't expect to see a sports trainer, let's say, yes, in this position, such a job, such a person. That's why I chose something in something more possible.
Yes. So I see your point. The point is you want to make it to facilitate things for the person, to make it easy. But maybe if we do this, if we do this story with young people that we work with, or with students, for example, we can just raise the question of, is it easy for people with disability to do all the jobs? What can we do to facilitate access to jobs for people with disability? Can there be equality in job access to people? So the point here, the main point is we just take this issue, select it, and we put it in the spotlight with the young people we work with in order to discuss the big issue of equal opportunities for people with disabilities. But I see your point, of course, that this is about accommodating the jobs to the needs of people with disability. Thank you very much, Yorati. Is there any other story to share or any reaction to this story? So, either a reaction or maybe a different story.
I understand the story is different way. Can I say?
Yes, please.
I wrote in our chat. So Chavki, a job seeker with physical disability, try to find a job in a big company, but employer do not accept him because of his disability. He said, our office is not adopted for you. It's totally different from Yorata's story. Yes. And written in negative way.
Yes, and unfortunately also related to this, in some of the stories I work with private schools recruiting teachers, and sometimes, unfortunately, some private schools, they don't accept some candidates because of their disability. I mean, regardless of their competence, sometimes, sadly, just because of the disability, they don't give them a job position in teaching, and this is really sad. So thank you. And this story, of course, again, we can use it as a springboard to discuss whose responsibility it is if people with disability do not enjoy the same employment opportunities as other people. So this is an issue, and this is a prejudice, if you like, that we can discuss. So the point of these stories is we are using stories that people write to bring into light issues that are related either to gender, to disability, to racism. And you can always adapt these stories. I have adapted these ones from the handbook. They are not the ones in the handbook, but I try to write ones that I think our group today can discuss, but we can always accommodate and adapt. Thank you very much for sharing, Silva. Thank you. Any other reaction or sharing of a story? Okay. If there is no other reaction or any
I would like
comment,
to say something. Oh.
Yes, please.
May Lashan. You know, I have chosen the third story, but when I heard what Urate said and Silva said, and thinking about all our differences, you know, even how we understood, how we took that first sentence already was very different. And for instance, me, I wrote, I don't know from where it came, but it came story to my mind. And of course, I didn't have time enough to write everything, but I can just read the beginning and you will see that it's again like totally different. Rita,
Yes.
a single mother living in a poor neighborhood, was very surprised when in her post box she saw that big envelope. She opened it with care and curiosity. Big white paper with wonderful small drawing inside, and big thank you in big letters. So many questions have run through her mind. At the same moment, she saw a girl standing near the gates and waving. And it was, I already had story in my mind. And you know, and suddenly when we started to talk about prejudices and yeah, and I thought, oh my goodness, like, you know, totally different approach. And also how it happens. So it shows again how different we are. Yeah. And so it's about the same
Yes.
intercultural learning. So
Thank you very much, Rolanda. Actually, I think it was my mistake because I shouldn't have said, let's try to see if we can find prejudice or stereotype. Perhaps I shouldn't have said that. I should maybe just have asked people to share the story and then we discuss the issues or what the story means to us. So I think this is really interesting because yes, we can have something very positive in the story. And that's also something that will help us discuss because what you said about the single mother here is a celebration. You are celebrating what she is doing and like people are thanking her and giving her love because what she's doing is, I mean, she's carrying a heavy responsibility and she has kids to take care of. So perhaps my instruction, maybe I should, if I do this with young people, I think you are right. We shouldn't say, let's try to see if there is prejudice, but perhaps let's discuss the story. And then what comes out of the story can be different. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. If you don't mind, because of time constraints, we need to move to the second activity. And the second activity is a little bit different. It's an activity that I have done many times with the youngsters, with the high school students when I was teaching in the classroom. And for me, it promotes intercultural citizenship in a way. So I would like to invite you, first of all, to have a look at the activity. And then after that, we can discuss, is it possible to use it to promote intercultural citizenship education when we work with young people in non-formal settings and also informal settings. So it is a poetry writing activity. And it is entitled, I Am From. I don't know if any one of you is familiar with this type of poem. Are you familiar with it? It's an entitled I Am From, and it's international. It's been used in many different contexts for the purposes of promoting interculturality. So this is the procedure of the poem. I would like to explain the procedure, and then you can understand, just by explaining the procedure, you can have an idea about it. So the instruction we can give to the students, the children, or to the adults, even young people who are studying, or the young people that we work with in our organizations, is to write the name of their hometown or home village. And what you can see in blue here is mine, what I wrote for me. It's my own poem. So writing the name of your hometown or country. Mine is, I am from Tissint, the deep south. This is the name of my village. It's a small, tiny village in the south of Morocco. It's an oasis, and it's the name of the village. The second thing is things it is famous for, this place, this city or village or country, the products or the cultural sites, etc. For me, I wrote from palm trees, because in my village, the most predominant object or whatever, or tree, is the palm tree, because it's a oasis. So because the poem is entitled I Am From, I can write from. I am from Tissint, I am from palm trees. The next thing is the places, objects, or people, or animals you often see at home or in your neighborhood, and their characteristics. The ones I wrote is from simple large house. This was in the Moroccan villages. The houses are really large. They are not luxurious houses, of course. It's a village, but they are so large. So large, it could take the whole village. And it happened many times that the whole village is there in our home. From blue motorbike, because the instruction says it can be places, objects, or people. My father had a blue motorbike that we used to ride. Tagine every day, it was the main dish. Every day we had tagine. And people in white, that's white, I'm sorry, it's not white. White fukias. Fukia is a sort of wearing, it's a traditional wear, traditional costume that is worn. It's white and it's long, it takes the whole body. This is what men used to wear. From the first phrase or sentence or sound you used to hear as a child when you wake up. So this is the next instruction. For me, what I wrote, my father's voice, waking up everyone. Come on, boy, men don't sleep until sunrise, he used to say. He used to wake us up before the sunrise, and for him, it's a shame that we are still asleep after the sunrise. The next instruction is any memorable smell or feeling from your childhood. For me, what I wrote, I am from sweet mint that you could smell in every home. Because the people in my village, they used to grow mint in their farms, in their land and so on. So it's really strong smell. Fresh air, Mount Bani, this is the name of a mountain that we have in the village, and River Atik. Atik is the name of the river. Special people in your life, their characteristics. I wrote, I am from a lovely mom, a scary dad. Our dad was so tough. And the dog we named Virgule. By the way, Virgule in French means a kama, because the tail of the dog looked like a kama. So we called him Virgule. So if you read my story, the blue, what is in blue is my story. And of course, other kids and other people who participate in writing this story, this poem, they can, of course, write their own. So let's read what's in blue. I am from Tissint, the deep south, from palm trees, from a simple large house, so large it could take the whole village, from a blue motorbike tagine every day and people in white fokiyas. From my father's voice, waking up everyone. Come on, boy, men don't sleep until sunrise. I am from sweet mint that you could smell in every home, fresh air, Mount Bani and River Atik. I am from a lovely mom, a scary dad, and a dog we named Virgule. So, how do you think this poem or poem like this can be used to promote intercultural citizenship among young people? I mean, in a situation where we are teaching them or working with them or having a training with young people? Can it be used to promote intercultural citizenship education, and in what way?
Yeah, maybe it's about taking stock about what they love about their places of their homes, sharing things they're proud of, and learning from each other. Because even reading your one is making me realize how different London is.
How different, sorry?
Reading your poem is making me realize the contrast with London and how different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can, by reading something different, of course, you can realize the contrast and the diversity. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can also, it's one way, because when you get poems from the young people, you get them and you put them, for example, in a poster or on the wall. They are hung on the wall, and you can see 15 or 20 different poems, and each one reads his or her poem, and each one is unique. So it's also a celebration of identity, and it's a celebration of difference, because you are trying to make the point that no culture is better than the other, no lifestyle is better than the other. Living in a village or in a city does not really make a difference, but it's about respect for others. I mean, we also promote respecting difference and respecting, understanding difference. And of course, as you said, understanding oneself, because when you read somebody else's poem like this, you also try to reflect on yourself and your situation. Any other comments?
These are really personal things, such as a memorable smell or feeling, and it's very sweet, yes, very nice points that we have to remember. Because when I thought about what was the smell from my childhood, I couldn't remember anything really nice, because that was the center of the city, cars around, buses around, and so on. Yes. Yes.
And by the way, that's why there were so many prompts. So if you might not consider the smell, but it says smell or feeling from your childhood. So it could be a feeling, how you felt, or how you used to feel. Were you happy when you were a child, with the kids, etc.
Sure,
so of course, Yorati, I mean, these are flexible things. We can also change these prompts here. We can, but the main point is sometimes you have children or people in some minorities who don't have a high esteem of themselves. They think that their identity or their culture is not important. They have this feeling of inferiority. So when you ask them to write exactly how they felt or what they think is important for them, they are trying to make the point that they are also important. And sometimes you can focus on people that you think have this problem of having a low self-esteem, but you can help them to really write what they think is important for them, from either from their childhood or from their own environment, etc. And this is flexible. You can change anything from these prompts. But the point is, it could be used to celebrate identities, to celebrate difference, to also to reflect on one's own identity as well. So this is one of the poems. There are so many on the net, by the way. This is one example. You can take a few seconds to read it if you like, but you can find so many on the internet, and it's a very popular style of poetry that is used in many situations where interculturality is important.
Sorry, I have to leave now because I've got another work meeting, but I've done my poem quickly and I'll share it before I go.
Okay, so no problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for attending. Thank you. Now, I would like now to invite you, if possible, to again, because of the problem of the breakout sessions, but we can do this as a group. If you can share some of the ideas or practices you have been doing like these, like pedagogical techniques or experiences that you know of, that you have done yourself, that can be used to promote intercultural citizenship education among young people, either in the formal or in the non-formal education sectors. So we can take a few minutes to work individually first, okay, to prepare ideas, and then we can share all together. We can have a discussion. Each one shares ideas with the rest. So they can be activities you have done, or maybe that you know of, that you have attended probably, that can be used for intercultural citizenship education in formal and non-formal environments. So let's take 5 minutes to think individually, and then we will discuss. We have 1 minute before we share. Okay, are you ready? So let's see if we can start. Okay, can you hear me, everyone? Okay, great.
Yes.
So I can see in the chat box that, I'm sorry if sometimes I miss what is written there, but I can see that Ajida has shared with us a website. I think it contains poems like these. Is that right?
No, it's a game, more than one story, and you can play in your organization or somewhere on like on Zoom meetings, and it's really nice because you can ask a question like tell about one of your passions or ask a question of your choice to another player, and just to break the silence, or just to know people.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. That's nice. And I can also see a poem that was posted here in the chat box by Miriam. I think, yes, Alison informed me that she has left for a call, but it's a really a nice poem, but I wanted to ask her if she wrote it, and maybe she can answer it later. And of course, the people can be creative. Like when I do this with students, I ask them to be creative. They cannot, it's not necessary to follow the guidelines there in the poem. They can, it's just for inspiration. The prompts in the poem are just to inspire them, but they can be creative and they can do it in a different way. So thank you very much, Miriam, for sharing all of this. That's really nice, yes. Okay, she wrote it just now, Alison. Thank you for letting us know, yes. Great. So if time, normally I wanted to invite you to write it, but I knew that probably it could take time to write. So you can also try to write your own. And please try it with, especially if you are working with students. If you are working with young people, try it. It works. It works a miracle because it's very personalized. And young people, they like it when they write about something, and show them samples. By the way, this is also what I did. I printed like 5 or 6 examples. They read them, so they knew what it's about from different countries. So they had an idea, and they tried to have a mixture of poems from different contexts, like really different contexts, so that they can see the variety and the diversity, and they can understand that they should write something really personal about themselves. Is really related to themselves, their identity. So going back to sharing, so if anybody would like to start, please to share with us any experiences or best practices in this regard, please.
I'll start if you want.
Yes, Roy, thank you very much.
Okay. I used to work at a college in the northwest of England, and I'm going back some time to the 1990s, but we had a range of activities. I mean, one simple thing we did was working with design students and getting them to illustrate nursery rhymes from other countries, and they swapped. But what I want to tell you about is I was also in charge of hairdressing and beauty therapy. Now, it's hard to believe when you look at me now, but actually this was in the dim and distant past. I had a large hairdressing and beauty therapy department in my charge. Now, the town I worked in was St. Helens. And you have to imagine this is a very parochial, very parochial, predominantly white small town. So my hairdressing students hadn't encountered anything outside the town in the main. And what we did to get them used to a totally different culture is we took a group of these young women to an inner city London college, and it was Tower Hamlets, where the majority of the students were from African or Caribbean backgrounds. And of course, they have very different hair. So the idea was, it was a practical situation. And I've always found with young people, the more practical and in this case, hands-on approach is a very good way of doing it, because they were working on each other's hair. And of course, as you know, when you go to the barbers or the hairdressers, you have a constant conversation with the person who's working with your hair. So not only was it about gaining new skills to work with Afro hair, for example, but it was also a way of getting the young women from my department talking and discussing with young women from a very different cultural background. Plus it was London, a big city, and we worked together for a week, and it was a very successful week. Now, the young women from St. Helens were probably not going to work on black hair, but it was more about the experience. It was to get them engaged with different cultures, and of course they went out in the evenings together, and they built up friendship that way, and it broke down those barriers right away.
That's really interesting, Roy. Thank you very much for sharing this. Sometimes, as you said, hands-on experiences are really effective because they can see it firsthand and they can experience it. Experiential learning, I think, is very important, and that's really interesting to because it's really tough sometimes to change attitudes that have been there for many years. So thanks for sharing. Any other comments or sharing of experiences?
I have. Shall I speak?
Yes, Alison, go ahead.
So a simple thing we used to do when I was teaching at university for students is actually to get them to think about everything that they do already have within their knowledge sphere that they just don't think about as being a different culture. So it's getting them to envisage that they're walking down the street, and as they're walking, to ask them to look at their feet and what shoes are they wearing? Are they wearing trainers? Where did those trainers come from? Where do their clothes come from? Where are they manufactured? What materials are they made from? And then thinking about food. Food is a great one, actually, in terms of sharing culture. And people just don't make the association of eating a curry, for instance, with the culture of India or Pakistan or any Southeast Asian subcontinent. And also thinking further on from that about music, which is something that is universal for all young people, and how we share a lot of our culture through music, and asking people to understand and recognize the lyrics within music, because quite often they're attracted to the beats or the rhythm or the tempo, but actually to listen to lyrics and understand perspectives through music. So it's a really simple kind of half-hour session of just getting people to visualize, to think about how they absorb and already are absorbing other cultures, but that they're not actually paying attention to them and acknowledging that there is another culture. You know, I'm going to go back to the curry thing again, but in the UK, it's still the #1 takeaway food. So there is that, getting people to acknowledge and understand where that food comes from, what culture that food comes from, in the same way that you can do with any number of those areas, like music, theatre, performance, clothes, all of those aspects. And they're all familiar with them. So it's not expecting them to think about things that are outside their terms of reference.
Thank you very much, Alison. It's really practical, and it's starting from what the students already have and experience on a daily basis, but to get them into deep learning of the perspectives and the, if you want, the what's behind those cultural products like food, like clothes, like music. It's really interesting. Thank you very much for this, because sometimes we teach these things in a very superficial way, in a shallow way, and culture is not only products or what do you wear, etc., but what, as you said, what's behind it, who has done it, who has manufactured it, and in terms of music, what are the ideas, the values behind those lyrics. So it's really interesting. Thank you very much.
May I say?
Yes, Rolanda, go ahead.
After many youth exchanges I have arranged with young people, I would like to talk about the role of creativity, because when they come so different to one group and they start to create something, because usually our intercultural youth exchanges were about arts, and all young people were divided to different groups. Of course, they were choosing groups themselves, and in different groups they were creating something. Either it was music group or theater or acrobatics or painting, it depends. And you know, it was wonderful moments when you could see and recognize those signs of being together in the same mood, even if at the beginning there were a lot of fear, there were a lot of misunderstandings, and how it could disappear through 10 days or 1 week. And the most important, that of course not differences were disappearing, but all those bad feelings were disappearing when person meet something unknown, when don't understand what's going on, when when looking is very different. But when you have the same purpose, when you start creating that creative process, you start to live in the same atmosphere. And this atmosphere of creativity, it's such a powerful tool. And so why I believe that intercultural youth exchanges can break any walls. And it's such a power, such big, powerful thing that can solve a lot of problems. And I was witnessing so many times that. So
thank you.
So shortly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rolanda. It's very interesting. And now you remind me of an experience I had back in, I think it was in 2009. We had an exchange with a Danish school. It's called Tvind Institute in Denmark. It's a very tiny place in Denmark, but they are a high school with a boarding school, and they host students with special problems who are experiencing trauma and so on. And we had that exchange, and I was working in a school in the south of Morocco. It's called Gulmim, and it's a bit conservative, if you like. And those students, they were 18, they came, and our students were shocked. They had never met students with earrings, for example, male students with earrings and with those strange haircuts and, clothes. And the first time they met them, they saw them in the school, our students, they were, especially the girls, they immediately went back and they didn't want to mix with them. But what happened? In the second night, we had a gala dinner and we had a music night. We asked our students to bring music and they chose Rai music. Rai is in Algeria and in Morocco. It's like rap a little bit in terms of the rhythm. So the Danish, they brought their own music. And the moment they were talking about music during their presentations, after 30 minutes, they were completely different. You know, those first looks and first impressions, they disappeared when they started to exchange music to dance with each other. So I think art and the music, they really have a powerful impact. But what is important, I think, as Alison said, is if also we go beyond that superficial view of music to discuss the values, because that specific music that our students that chose to present, Rai music, I mean, in terms of the lyrics, it contains so many, you know, so many values that are global values, if you like. So we started to translate that, and it was an interesting exercise. So at the end, the students were really open to talk to the other students, and this was something that we could not do, for example, by virtual exchange, or by you know, teaching the students through a PowerPoint or something. You need human contact, and you need people who can make that happen, who are so patient, trainers who are patient too, and who believe that when people meet together, they can start to change. Thank you very much. I think if there is any other thing to share, please go ahead, because we need to move on. You can maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Any comments? Or yes, Roland.
Just very shortly, I think
Yes.
during intercultural learning, it's very important to speak about stereotypes as well, because we will never avoid stereotypes. They will always be with us, but it's very important to teach people to understand what they are about and to recognize them in the reality, and to then to feel that every situation or every human being is different, every situation, and to live with that question: is it really like that? Is it that truth, you know? And yeah, I think it's very important.
That's true. Thank you very much. Now we need to go if you need a break, but because we took more time from the other activities, if you don't mind, let's take 5 minutes break instead of 10. Is that okay? So let's have a break for 5 minutes and we come back. Thank you very much. After the break, we will have a debate about some issues that are also important when we talk about intercultural citizenship education. So 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Can we check the time, Lahin?
Yes.
Because when are we back? 30?
We're back at from our 30 minutes
30.
past.
Okay.
30 minutes past. Yes. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, is everyone back?
Yes.
We are.
All right. Okay, so let's resume. So we still have 30 minutes. We will spend about 20 minutes in the next activity, and the rest we will talk about the activities of the next workshop. So for the next activity, it's a debate. We are going to discuss some, as I said before, some key issues that are really important when we talk about intercultural citizenship education in the Euromed region. And they can be debatable. We can agree or disagree with some of the statements. I am going to show you some statements here in the next slide. Well, normally I planned to do it in the breakout sessions, but unfortunately, I don't know, for some technical reason, we have a problem doing the breakout sessions here. But as we are a small group, of course, we can also discuss them. So these are statements, and I would like us to invite you. I would like to invite you if you agree or disagree with the statements, and then we can have a debate together about each statement. So here are the statements. Can you read them clearly? Because I think. Oh, sorry. Can you read the statements?
Can you put the slide into presentation view? It'll just make it. That's better.
Great.
That's better.
Oh, good.
Very good. So what I suggest is we have a look at these statements from 1 to 8. We read them, and we can start our discussion. Anyone can start with any statement. You don't have to start from 1, 2, 3. You can select anyone you would like to react to and tell us whether you agree or disagree with it, and why, and what you think, and if you want to elaborate on your answer. So let me give you 1 or 2 minutes to read them first, and then we can start our discussion. Okay, can we start? Anybody can pick up any one of the statements, and we start discuss. Okay. Everybody is silent.
How do you want us to start? Are you just expecting anybody to make any comment about any of them?
Yes. That's what I suggested, to make it informal. So anybody can pick up any one of these statements that they feel they would like to comment on, this, to say whether they agree or disagree, and to elaborate.
Good start.
Okay, go ahead, Rolanda.
Okay. Not all cultures are compatible with human rights. I disagree, because in general, I would never say that there are good cultures or bad cultures. There is no way. They are just different. And also culture is something together with a human being. And yeah, we all, and this intercultural learning is about absolutely permanent process. There is no end to that. And of course, it can never be one-way road. It's different directions, and all cultures, even I think talking about identity and every culture is with their specifics and human rights we are creating in every moment with our behavior, with our attitudes and knowledge. So why I don't agree with this sentence.
Thank you very much, Rolanda. I think what you said is important because if we say, yes, not all cultures are compatible, we might fall in the trap of understanding culture as static. Even if we presuppose that a culture, that some of the ideas in a specific culture are not, they go they don't promote human rights, but cultures are dynamic as well. People can change their cultural perspectives, their ways of seeing their own culture, their own religions. And I think even with the most, I would say, quote unquote, democratic communities, there might still be abuses of human rights. So it's not, I think, about culture, but it's the readiness of the people of that culture to adapt, to reflect on their own culture, because as you said, nothing is static, nothing is permanent. And I think it's the educating people, whatever their culture is, educating them to be critical thinkers, I think is really what matters. This is just to react to what you said, support you. Any other reaction to the same, if you want, statement? Or maybe we can move to another one. Anybody would like to comment on any other statement here?
How I chose the second one, that people deserve the leaders that they have. And the USA came to my mind with the Trump. I don't, of course, well, sorry, that's Friday evening, but that's the only case that I could imagine, and I cannot agree to that, of course.
So you mean you agree or you don't?
No, I don't agree. People shouldn't have such leaders. No.
But it happens, doesn't it? I mean, I sometimes think the current situation in the UK, where we've got our own Donald Trump, and we've got elections today, and the support for the Conservative Party seems very high across the country. So I can't believe why people would vote for an idiot, but and that's what I don't understand. I would like to believe the opposite of this, but sometimes I can't help myself, because I get so angry about why people vote for what they do. They don't vote for truth. They vote for an incompetent liar. And why is that? Why can't people see through the facade of people like Trump and Johnson? Perhaps it's back to education, but that comes down to point number 5 here. Without the support of government providing the environment, the educational environment where everything can be discussed openly and freely, then I don't know.
Yes, Roy, if I may comment or interact with you, Roy, with what you said regarding the second one, people deserve the leaders they have. I think when we think from the perspective of citizenship education, it also raises the issue of political participation and who participates in politics, because what I see, at least in my country, is that sometimes we have idiots being elected because the political parties, they prepare their militants, and we have a low percentage of participation from young people and from the educated people. People don't go for voting. The ones who go for voting are the militants, the ones who are already belong to a political party, who vote blindly just because they are supporting a specific color, or I mean, not color of the political party. So I think the real issue that concerns us as educators and people who work in civil society is, do we get people who, I mean, individuals, young people to go, can we convince them to go and vote? Because because these are the majority. People who don't belong, in my country, people who don't belong to political parties are the majority. But unfortunately, people who vote, most of the people who vote are militants of the political parties, or the ones that political parties bring to the rallies and so on. So I think it puts into question our role again, and also the role of other organizations that work in youth work and in political participation to counter that reality, which is to make people, convince people to vote. I see Johnny raising his hand. Go ahead, Johnny.
Hello, I think the political education, and I can only say for the UK, is just horrendous. You tend to only vote for what your parents have voted for. It's just like kind of, we're a Labour household or we're a Conservative household, and you just go along with your influences from your parents. And I think a comment on the London mayoral elections, where the YouTuber seems to be what everyone's talking about. So there's, if you don't know, there's in the mayoral elections within London, there's a YouTuber that is just, he's just taking the mick completely out of the mayoral candidate. But it's very entertaining as well. And that's the most exciting thing about the elections at the moment. It's and I think, you know, for a young person looking at it, I couldn't, you know, that's the most exciting thing, and that's a comment. It should be the other candidates who are actually putting forward powerful statements of change. That was what people should be excited for, not a YouTuber making a joke out of it. But it's still, that's what people are talking about. So I think, as Roy said before, it's a pivotal time in the UK at the moment in terms of the elections. I didn't have a thriving, you know, kind of motivation to vote. I really didn't. I did. But then when I was asking my friends who were a similar age, kind of mid-20s and 30s, they didn't vote. And it's just not within the culture. And I think when you look at the other aspect of different cultures, different people within different cultures that don't even have the right to vote, and they fight for it. And then there's people who were just like, I'm not going to vote, and you take it for granted so much. I think that's wrong, and that's where education, I believe, can fix it.
That's true. Thank you very much, Johnny. That's true.
Sorry, I was just going to continue.
Yes,
what Johnny's saying there is right. A lot of young, and actually what you were saying as well, Dashan, lots of young people don't vote, but they feel let down by the voting system and the political system, which does not speak to them. And I think for a lot of countries, particularly in the West, it's always a two-party choice. It's either left or it's right. And actually, if we could move away from party politics and more towards, you know, running countries as you would a business. We have people in political posts that've got absolutely no clue about what they're supposed to do, but they got it just because they're in this party and that was what they were given as their job. And we've got some pretty horrific examples of that with people like Priti Patel, for instance, who's our Home Office representative, who is of descent from her parentage is not from the UK, and her treatment of refugees and asylum seekers is appalling. And I just think surely there needs to be compassion, but we play very much to populism and sound bites, and that's why people like Boris and Trump get the support, because it's simplified. It's very easy to just say, you know, I mean, he's spouting now about we got Brexit done. For goodness sake, but what does that even mean? You plunged us into even more turmoil than we were already in. But I don't think there is much education, and there's a lack of willingness by governments to let that education happen, most importantly. They want to keep that kind of shroud over everybody so that nobody really debates anymore. And there's been a huge rise, I think, since 2016 in the UK of this anti-tide of anti-everything. Everything that we've fought for the last 70 years as UK residents is now being eroded, and we're letting it be eroded.
I mean, it's what Johnny was saying, isn't it? About it's education. I won't quote Tony Blair, but it is education. But when we've got a national curriculum that's directed from a conservative government, and I mean with a small c there as well, you're not going to have the change that we need within our schools and our colleges.
Yes, okay. Yes, go ahead, Johnny. You're raising your hand.
I think just to make another comment on, as well as political education, religious education, I think politics should be educated to young people in school, and not in terms of, as Alison said, of like maybe not people involved in the party or anything like that, but just what did the parties stand for? Or when you are educating about people and candidates, what did they stand for? What did they want to do throughout their term? And I think that should be a similar thing in religion. I think when you're brought up in a particular school, so I was brought, I went through in a Catholic school, so it was all about Catholicism, of course it was. And then when it comes to let's educate you about other religions, it was like we'll spend 5 seconds on Islam, and then it was just like it just went right through, and you're just like, okay, like give me an opportunity. And I think with religion, with politics, that's your decision, what you vote for, what you believe in. So educate or be educated on it, then choose to educate yourself on it. And then you can make an informed decision of what you want to then do in the future, if that's a political vote or if that's a religious belief. Education is key for me.
That's true. That's true. And I think, at least in my country, in Morocco, what we feel nowadays is a strong attack on education. And there are people who want to keep politics as a business of an elite, of people who are turn it like a corporation. Political parties being enclosed, you don't know what's happening inside. And there is like a game, even in the parliament, I know, of political parties taking their own parts of the cake. And civil society organizations, sometimes they don't feel empowered because the legislation does not help them to have an impact on the parliament and the government. There is a legislation recently, but it is not really applied. It is not so, I would say, it doesn't have the power, the necessary power. For example, the civil society organizations now can participate in the meetings of the city councils, in government committees, in the parliament, but just as observers, and they can write their reports and so on. But it's not binding. The reports are not binding to the government. So there is a need for lobbying, for a stronger role of civil society organizations. But the other problem is also that civil society network is not strong itself, not yet. I mean, we still need capacity building in civil society organizations to lobby and to help change this reality of political participation. Because otherwise, politics will be, there will be a gap between politics and what we have as what people want. And I think the role of organizations like the Anna Lindh Foundation is to lobby for that. If it has connections with the government, especially I'm talking about the southern part of the Mediterranean, to help these civil society organizations to have a stronger presence in different committees in the government and the parliament. Well, we have 10 minutes so left. If you want, we can continue with one more statement, or we can leave the statements. We start with the next session. We start with, as a warm up for the next session, we can start with the remaining statements. But if anybody would like really to comment on one of the other statements now, they can do it. We can spend maybe 3 to 4 minutes before we move to the last slide, where we are going to talk about what we can do next time. Johnny.
A story comes to my mind about with number 8 is that we can never reach full inclusive societies. And I remember going to an equality and diversity forum where they did not have a wheelchair ramp into the venue. And it really made me think about in terms of being inclusive to everyone, especially from like an event point of view. But then it also got me thinking like from the financial impact. So there was a financial impact. There was a cost to bring a wheelchair to that event. That's obviously something you've got to take into account as an organizer of an event. But then as you if you want an event to be all inclusive, then do you have the financial capacity to do that? And then also like, how far do you go? So, and I think there's certain demographics, there's certain groups of people within a society, if they are represented proportionately, they then should be brought into the event. For example, people are in a wheelchair. There's many people in a wheelchair in the UK. So then that would be money should be invested in to make the community accessible for them. But instead, let's say like 10% of the population. I know it's not. But then if you're down to like 1% of the population in terms of your disability or the right to be included, then should you not be represented in society? And I hope that I've not rambled on a little bit too much there, but in terms of like at what point does your demographic, does your disability then be included, if that makes sense? That was something that came into my mind.
I would like to,
in other words,
sorry. I would like to add to just this point, because I was looking all the time at this statement and I was thinking, can we ever reach absolute happiness? Because this, this has never, will never have any end, because we will never be the same. Sometimes you are excluded because just of different color of your hair, and you must go through such difficult processes. So I think it should be like we all the time must learn, and it's like you can't like you make your homework and now you know everything. No, because you always will meet something what you don't know, what you have never seen in your life. And those opportunities are becoming wider and wider. So this is like, we all must be with open eyes, listening and trying to because differences, we can't make that we will be without differences. The main question is how to learn to deal with those differences. And this is biggest challenge and the most interesting part of our life.
Yes, I do agree with you. I think what came to my mind also is the idea of gender. And the question, especially in our societies in the southern Euro-Mediterranean part, we still have certain taboos, for example, in terms of the rights of gays, of people who choose their own sexual identities. And I think I agree with you, Rolanda. The most important thing is when a certain inequality occurs, are we educated enough to be able to deal with that situation? I think it comes back to education, as we said before. Do people, first of all of them believe in inclusiveness? Do all of them have that value of equal rights and of respect for difference as a principle? And then perhaps, yes, if something occurs, then we have to deal with it positively, but we cannot be idealists. We cannot have the ideal situation because for example, disabilities and special needs, they will always change, and we will have new types of needs of specific people. So I think I agree with you. Inclusiveness is a process. It's something we need to educate people on, but we cannot guarantee that 100% we can reach the ideal situation. I think we only have a few minutes. So what I suggest is the next session, I'm going to have this slide in the beginning of the session. So if there are any, maybe we can have 10 minutes to discuss the other statements, because they are really important, that it's important to discuss these things, to come up to an understanding of these issues. So for the briefing, I would like just to ask you, while doing these activities, because we have started with the activity of the story of finishing a story, then we went to the poem I am from, and a discussion of these issues, where do you stand? And before that, we discussed some of the concepts. I am sure that you are experienced, of course, enough in intercultural citizenship education, and you know the concepts and so on. My question is, doing these activities today, is there something that you are thinking of not changing, but of taking into consideration in your action plans, in whatever you do, be it in your academic work or in your work within a civil society organization? Did these discussions bring something to your mind about what you need to start doing or to change, or what you need to pay attention to more in your work? I see somebody raising her, no. So yes, okay. Yes, Johnny, go ahead.
Sorry, I raised my physical hand instead of my virtual hand.
Yes, I saw the physical hand. No, the physical is better. Go ahead.
The initial, I think there was 4 or 5, almost, you started with defining words. And I think we've all heard these definitions of these words before, but the world has stopped for about a year now, and it's changed everything, especially to do with interculturalism, to do with travel. I think to maybe the method of a youth exchange, in terms of let's get everyone to, or let's go to a country, bring everyone to a certain country. Well, no, we've not been able to do that for a year. And then I know in the UK, there's 10 days left until you can travel, and that's all that's on the news. Can I go to Benidorm? Can I go to Tenerife? And that's obviously from like a social tourism point of view. But yeah, I think when you're, coming to define these words, starting to talk about interculturalism again, you've almost now got to take away physical or face-to-face sessions, and you've got to rely a lot more on technology, rely a lot more on virtual exchanges. So I think everyone's concept of how to work with interculturalism, how to reach, exchange and debate with people, it's changed. So that was what was going through my mind when we were having the discussions. You've got to think about it in a different way. You've got to think about it in more of a virtual, and how you can use technology to do that instead of a good old face-to-face chat. And of course, for me, that's the optimum, that's the premium level of when someone can sit down over a cup of tea, over a cup of coffee, over whatever, and then you can build that relationship with someone. But it has changed over the issues of public health, and and hopefully we are coming out of it, but I think it's going to be a long time until there's so many countries represented in one room, in a physical room together. So that's what was going through my mind. You've got to think about the state of the world, public health, in terms of bringing people together.
Thank you very much, Tony. That's a very interesting perspective. I think keeping up with the changes and adapting to the new situation in terms of the methodology of training, the tools that we should use to train people, and to ask ourselves how effective is now our training in intercultural citizenship education, using technology and so on. So I think, yes, this is a good point to reflect on and to take into consideration. And it will come up when I show the topics for next week. Actually, there is a point related to this. Any other reflection or point to consider for the future? Anything that came to your mind while doing these activities? Any feeling? How did you feel while doing the activities?
I think I can add. I think that everyone is unique, and from this workshops, we go more from emotional side, from our emotions, and not like from books.
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much. I think emotions and the affective side is very important in intercultural education, because it's about values, and it's about changing people's attitudes. So if you want to change attitudes and to instill values, we don't only need ideas and books. We need ourselves as individuals who deserve trust, and that people can trust when we talk to them. And I think that's why in civil society organizations, our work is unique, because we deal with individuals. We use art, we use music, we use poetry, and we talk, as you said, use our emotions to understand people and to help people understand themselves and the others. Unfortunately, because of this pandemic, we don't have physical exchanges, but physical exchanges are really powerful in terms, as you said, of changing attitudes through emotions. Thank you very much. I think we need to move to the last slide, which is tasks for next week. I wanted also to have a Google form for an evaluation of this session, but Wadia reminded me that there is an evaluation after the second workshop. So I don't want to don't want to give you two different evaluation forms. So he's going to give us a link to a quick evaluation form after the second workshop. Okay, so I decided not to do the one that I planned. For next session, I want your opinion whether it is possible for you to prepare 5 minutes presentations about the following topics. Why I suggest that you prepare presentations, because I believe in participatory training. And I think when people who participate come to a workshop, of course, they have a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise, and a lot of interesting perspectives. So it would be a pity if we don't learn from their perspectives. So what I suggest are these 5 topics. The first one, networking for intercultural citizenship education in the Euromed, because this is a very interesting topic. At least in the Al Ain Foundation, we have networks, national networks, and to what extent they have been effective, what challenges do the networks face in getting people together, and so on, and what are our suggestions to make networking even work when we are talking about intercultural citizenship education. I'm not talking about general networking, but for the objectives of ICE. The second topic, promoting diversity in civil society organizations' action plans. If someone would like to suggest to us a set of standards for inclusiveness. What I mean by inclusiveness here is not only including not only people with disabilities, but all people who are facing a sort of exclusion, like immigrants, like I don't know, minorities, and so on. How can civil society organizations put inclusiveness in their action plans? What are some standards or criteria, if you like, that we should have? I don't know if that's clear, but at least that's what I meant. If we want to agree or suggest a set of criteria or standards to say if, to call an organization really inclusive or that promotes inclusiveness, these are the conditions that they should have. The third one is combating hate speech. What can we do? As civil society organizations, as individuals, as governments, etc., what should be done? Topic 4, developing partnerships between formal and non-formal education institutions to promote ICE. And the 5th and the last one, intercultural citizenship education in higher education. So if you want, we can also modify them. If anyone would like to work on a topic, but they want to modify it to make it maybe serve a better purpose, or to make it, to adapt it to your situation, or what you think is more relevant, it's possible to adapt. So first of all, do you think it's a good idea that we have these short presentations by participants next time? It's okay. Thanks, Johnny. Thank you. Thanks, Alison. Alison is raising her hand. So let's move to who is going to do what, if that's possible. Or maybe you can think about it and send me an email and send a message later. I don't know. But it should be before the workshop. What do you think? I can see silence.
Dropped it in the chat. I've just dropped it in the chat. Roy has.
Oh, you're in the chat. Okay, thank you. All right, I didn't see it. Okay. I don't know how to go to chat discussion. I can't go to discussion. I don't know why. Discussion. Okay.
Probably we still all think what, because all those statements, and they are interesting, and for instance, I even don't know what would I like to choose more.
Alison, for some reason I can't read the chat box. Can you please read what you wrote? Because
Okay, sorry. So I've said I don't mind doing number 2. Roy has said number 5. Jurata has said number 5. Hope I've said that correctly, by the way.
Roy and, excuse me, for number 5, Roy and?
Is it?
Roy and Jurata.
Jurata, thank you.
I could do number 4.
Okay, I can write number 2 for Alison, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number 4?
Number 4, Aida.
Who? Sorry, I can't see the...
Aida or Ajida. Aida.
Ah, okay, okay. Thank you.
Apologies
So
if
we
I
have
misunderstand.
now...
This is
Sorry.
one person taking each topic.
Excuse me?
Sorry if I've misunderstood. This is one person taking each topic.
Yes,
doing
because
a
we have
presentation
2
on
people.
everything?
We have 2 people for topic 5. I don't. Maybe if they are different presentations, perhaps they could, both of them, they can be relevant. But I don't know. It's up to you. Do you think we should keep one person for each presentation?
But there's more of us than 5.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we are more.
I think it's okay to double up or something.
Well, we don't. I think we will have time only for 5, because what I planned is 25 minutes, 5 presentations. So
I'm happy to take number 1.
So
okay,
probably I could
that's-
think about number 3.
So that's Johnny, right?
Yes, CCC.
Okay. Sorry if I misspell any name. Number 3,
No
Rolanda,
worries.
Yes.
right? So we still have number. Okay, that's it. So we have it's full list. I mean, topics are taken. So we have number 1, Johnny. Number 2, Alison. Number 3, Rolanda. Number 4, Aida. And number 5, Roy and Jurata.
You
Is
can
that right?
believe me if it's too many of us.
No, you are the only one for topic 3.
No, this is for number 5.
Ah,
You can leave
Jurata.
Roy alone. I can just give some additional ideas to it because
Okay.
it would be too much, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Jurata. But we still need your input after Roy's presentation. Of course, you can give your input.
If we all have each other's email addresses, anybody that wants to add into number 2 with me, if they want to share anything, and then I'll just.
Okay. Okay. So we will write an email. We'll send an email with this this planning. And yes, if anybody would like to add themselves, they are welcome. I would like to thank you for being very cooperative. And okay, now I can see the chat. I don't know why I couldn't see it before. Okay, so I can read the Great Ahsan Civil Society is at the heart of government. Okay, thank you. This is okay. This is Thank you very much for writing in the chat box. I think we've agreed on the sessions for next time. If there are any final comments before we go, please go ahead.
Will you write the teams for us on email or no?
Excuse me?
Will you write these teams on email?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I will send them by email. Yes, I will write an email with these teams, and I will invite anybody who would like to, if someone wants to join to present with somebody else here, they are welcome. But given the time, of course, that we will have, I plan 25 minutes with the discussion of the presentations. It could take 40 minutes altogether. So we can add one more presentation if anybody really wants to be added. That's possible. So if there are any final comments before we go, please go ahead. Otherwise, we will call it a day. And
thank you, Lakhdar. It was very alive and useful and nice. You succeed, create very nice atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolanda. Thank you for your nice comments, and I hope that at least I triggered some nice discussion. And if you have, by the way, if you have any comments to send me, please, for next session, any remarks, anything that any recommendations for next session, whether in the content or in the style that of the workshop, how we do it, please feel free to do that before we meet next week again.
Okay, thank you. Bye all.
Thank you very much indeed.
Bye.
Thank you, and see you.
Bye.
Thank you very much for your attendance and for your collaboration.
Bye.
Thank you very much. See you next week.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Oh, تجلس.